The Toy Story franchise continues with its first big spin-off in theaters this week, and that is Lightyear, a film that I love, and if you know me, I'm a massive Toy Story fan, so I love a lot of these movies, so we're going to be diving into all the Toy Story films and ranking them from worst to best. Now, there is one more movie that I will be including in this, which is Buzz Lightyear Star Command, a fun movie that ended up getting its own entire show and spin-off. So this is going to be a fun list, guys. Make sure to share your thoughts down below, as well as hit that like and subscribe button so we can just keep talking movies over here on a daily basis. Coming down at my number 6, it is Buzz Lightyear Star Command. You can see the VHS right behind me. This is a movie that as a kid, I absolutely adored. I found it to be so fun, and then of course the show was just a blast as well. The theme songs, the characters, all those sorts of things just jived with me at the perfect age. Now, rewatching this film after it being years, the film doesn't hold up as much as I used to be. And this is kind of a film, if you look at the history of Buzz Lightyear, they very much kind of disown this entire show and movie, which I don't get why. It should definitely be on Disney Plus. It should not have been hard for me to find this movie and actually watch it, and especially some of the show. But this is a movie that just has some delightful and charming elements to it, and some fun elements that really take place in all of Star Command, and seeing where that goes and different characters that we are introduced to. This is a really unique concept that I just thoroughly enjoyed. But as of now, when you compare this to the rest of the Toy Story franchise, this is the far and few between the weakest one. Now we're going to be jumping into my number 5, and my number 5 is Lightyear. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Lightyear. It's just, I've only seen it once as of this recording. And for me, the rest of the Toy Story franchise, I've at least seen them all at least 20 to 30 times. Even Toy Story 4, which is the newest one in there. And for me, Lightyear, I can easily see moving up. I think this is a movie that I expected to just be a fun sci-fi adventure that's a throwback to a lot of those old creative and, you know, shows such as Star Trek, Flash Gordon, and things like that. But it actually contains not just those elements, but elements of Interstellar, The Martian, and deeper thematical experiences that dive into what Buzz Lightyear means and what is going on with him when we look at how does time affect us? What happens when we lose time? What happens when we ruin something else? Does that affect everyone else? As well as that affection, what does that mean? If I change someone's life for the worst, could there still be positives in there? These are things about respect and actually coming together and understanding that there is more to everything that meets the eye, and especially in the way that we look at time. And I love how this movie really reflected on that, especially with some twists and turns they actually take throughout the entire story. And I found myself emotionally engaged in the first 30 minutes. There's a scene that happens that I knew was going to come up, and it comes up, and I was bawling my eyes out. And for me, this entire franchise has always been the most emotional crux for me, and I found Lightyear to truly be an awe-inspiring, amazing sci-fi adventure epic that has some of the best cinematography as well as animation in any animation film yet. But as well, it is a movie that is just action-packed, and there's some crowd-pleasing moments where you're going to be cheering, screaming, having the time of your life, and I know I definitely did while watching Lightyear. I was truly impressed with this one, and if you have not seen this yet in IMAX, absolutely make time to see it in IMAX. It is one of the best IMAX experiences I've ever had. Jumping down into my number 4 now, we have Toy Story 4, a film that I just love. And honestly, here and up, I mean, every film on this list almost, I have some bit of nostalgia for, or in general, some just love for. And for me, Toy Story 4, whether you're introducing new characters like Ducky, Bunny, Forky, Duke Kaboom, Canada's greatest stuntman, all of them were great, as well as probably having one of the best villains in the entire franchise, Gabby, who represents something that is completely different. She's not just evil for the sake of being evil, there's actually more to her character. This is a film that I just found hilarious. I think, again, best animation in the Toy Story franchise yet, right up there with Lightyear. I love, though, and I know some people find this film to really not be needed. Was it needed? No, no film is needed. But is the film that I wanted? Not really. When they announced it, I was heavily worried, since this is my favorite franchise of all time. The first movie is my favorite film of all time. But I was damn near scared where this would possibly go. And when I watched it, while I was a little bit sad that we didn't get, of course, like more Slinky or Ham or Rex and stuff like that, I understood why. This was a film about moving on. This is a film about going on to that next part of our lives. And Woody represents that. There are times in our lives where we think this is what we're supposed to be doing, this is our set destiny, but then something happens and you're like, wait, it's not. Bonnie throwing him away, throwing him to the side, just like forgetting about him. That is a big crux of what this all is. And now it's like, well, what is the next part of my journey? That is something that happened to me a couple years back. And now I'm doing this. And for me, like, I related heavily to Woody. Heavily related to this romantic comedy that we got between him and Bo Peep. And I just found it to be a fantastic epilogue to one of the best trilogies ever made. I love this movie. I adore it to every piece of the world. I know not everyone loves it, but I think for true Toy Story fans, and I really mean this, you gotta look at the epilogue in this entire nature and the way that this is the end of Woody's story. And that's all we needed. Yes, I would have loved more Buzz and Jessie and stuff like that, but this is a film and they took that risk of really centering it on Woody himself. Now we're going to jump into my number 3, and just so you know, when you watch my Pixar ranking, this is going to be vastly different than when it comes down to this ranking, just because I'm ranking this ranking on more nostalgic stuff as well as just personal things. And while I said the first Toy Story film is my favorite film of all time, I am going to put it at my number 3 because I never got to see it in theaters. I wasn't alive yet when it did come in theaters, and some of the other movies I have a little bit more of nostalgic memories when it comes down to viewing it for the first time in theaters. So just understand that this is my list, and we're gonna have fun talking about it. So at my number 3, it is the original Toy Story film, which honestly I still think has the best script out of the entire franchise, especially when it comes down to comedic moments. This is a script that is absolutely hilarious from top to bottom, bringing the world to life, bringing the world of Toy Story to life. And for me, this is just a film that I thoroughly enjoy, seeing Woody and Buzz come together for the first time, butting heads and being enemies, and then having to survive Sid's evil house with all of his crazy toys and unique things like that. It is a franchise, and this movie truly enough brought everything to life, but also teaches important messages to people. When I saw this film for the first time, I remember my sister was about to be born. And for me, I kind of felt like Woody, like, am I going to be abandoned? Am I going to be pushed to the side? All these sorts of things. And I wasn't, you know, like, you just come to appreciate that there is enough love to go around for everyone. And for me, Toy Story, the original one, is just such a classic movie that you can watch and enjoy and laugh and smile and be scared of at times, because that damn dog at Sid's house was pretty scary. This is just, it's my favorite film of all time, even though it's at my number 3. I mean, technically the entire franchise is my favorite film of all time, but the other two I have a little bit more of memories, especially about seeing them in theaters. Which brings me into my number 2, which is Toy Story 3. I remember vividly seeing this in theaters, and I truly remember my family surprising me, taking me to the theaters to see this, and the theater was packed. And I decided, I gotta go see this at the top, Mom. I gotta ditch you guys. I gotta go ditch you guys, and you guys can sit down here, but I have to go find a seat by myself. And I went and sat by myself and cried my eyes out and laughed and smiled and all sorts of things like that, because this film is awesome. I love how each Toy Story film, in a sense, is a different type of story. The fourth one's a romantic comedy. The first one's, in a sense, kind of a horror film at times. The third film is a prison break film, and the second movie is an Indiana Jones-styled adventure. And it's just all really cool to see how they put in these different tones and genres into all the different Toy Story movies. And for me, looking at Toy Story 3, what this could have been, and it is technically the conclusion to the trilogy, is I look at Toy Story 4 as being the epilogue to it all and finishing out some of the storylines. For me, 3 brought it all together, passing Andy's toys to Bonnie and giving me an emotionally resonating feeling. But not just there. There's so much here. Lotso is a fearsome, scary villain and one of the best in the entire Pixar filmography. The animation is great. All the prison breakout, all the new different characters you meet at the daycare, and what does this daycare stand for? There's 2 different sides, there's 2 different versions to every single person's story, and as you start to realize what the worst of the worst is, that's where it comes out to be. And for me, I just find this film to be grand, fun, and amazing. My number 1, it is Toy Story 2, the first film that I ever saw in theaters that I could remember. And I remember watching this in theaters, being scared for the first time, going into this dark room, not knowing what I was going to watch, and then popping up on the screen, Toy Story 2, that opening sequence when Buzz Lightyear is going to fight Zurg, and of course it's just Rex playing a video game, and I love this movie so much. It gives me this Indiana Jones style adventure at the same time of getting Woody and finding out some of his past and where he comes, and that he has all these different friends. And where does that come to them? They were abandoned. But Woody's never been abandoned. He knows what love is. He knows that. But he feels and endures that within 3 and 4, which ties back all the way to this one and makes this one even more special. I have a lot of nostalgia for this one just for the fact that it was my first film I ever saw in theaters. But really and much enough, Toy Story 2 is the epitome and one of the most perfect things for me because I just love it. I love when they go to the toy store and see the Barbie dolls and then have to go across the street in the cones, and that's awesome. And then they're in the hotel and Zurg follows them and they do that whole homage to Star Wars. And then there's another Buzz Lightyear who's getting interested with this with the cool belt. I just love this movie. It's so fun. It's so entertaining. And Toy Story is my life. So it's always hard ranking the entire Toy Story franchise, and I expect Lightyear to eventually pop up into the fourth ones, all four of them, and then it's gonna get hard to see where I place that in there. So guys, thank you once again for watching this. You guys are really all the best. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, and of course, until next time, stay classy.